Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to your Lunch Break Live. My name's Ivana Harinq if you're new here, and if you're not, thank you for coming back. It is Monday. We have made it here again, July the 18th, and this week is SEC Media Days. Now, this happens every summer. It's something that so many people, especially sports fans, look forward to as kind of the unofficial kickoff of football season. At least it gets you thinking that way. So today I am joined by one of our sports reporters, Creg Stephenson, and Creg is here today to talk a little bit about the things that we are really looking to come out of SEC Media Days. Some of the things that fans really want to know, really want to hear about, on top of all of the other press conferences and conversations that are sure to come. So, Creg, I know you had a story this morning talking about the top 5 things, and I think that it's worth kind of recapping that and letting you expound a little bit. So, first, tell me about SEC Media Days and what we can kind of expect from the week as an overview, and then we'll get into some of these top things to know.
Yeah, it's an event that started in the mid 80s. They had it in Birmingham every year until very recently. They had it in Atlanta a couple of years ago, went back to Birmingham. Now it's in Atlanta again. And depending on what happens with the future of the conference, it's possible it's going to move around a little bit more. When Texas and Oklahoma come in a few years from now, wouldn't be surprised to see it in Dallas or somewhere like that, just to kind of expand the conference's football footprint. And of course, it used to be an all print slash TV event, and now it's broadcast live the entire week. It's become much more of a TV show. Not as much news breaks out of it as did at one time because a lot of it's a 365 news cycle. So you don't go to SEC Media Days to find out who somebody's starting quarterback is going to be because you probably already know that. It's more of a let's just get out in front of the public and get our message out. That's kind of where things are these days.
Well, and again, it's in Atlanta this year. Again, it's a little bit weird for me. I'm in Birmingham, and it's weird not being here because it was here for so
Right.
long. Again, Monday through Thursday in Atlanta. Now, we will go over the scheduling here in a minute so you can know when to watch your favorite team, your favorite coach, and those press conferences. But first, let's talk about some of the things we want to know. Now, Creg, number one, I think on your list was something that I think is number one in a lot of fans' minds, and that is the feud. I don't know if we can say ongoing or the former feud between Coach Nick Saban and Coach Jimbo Fisher. Tell me a little bit about that and if we can expect that feud to come up again this week.
Well, it's definitely going to come up, but just background on it. Texas A&M went out and signed a recruiting class that was ranked higher than any recruiting class in the history of college football, and by far higher than any recruiting class they had ever put together. So immediately people started to suspect with the recent legislation allowing name, image, and likeness profits for players that Texas A&M's NIL collective was funneling money to the players. People started to say, well, they can't be doing this all above boards. And at an event actually in Birmingham in May, Nick Saban said things pretty much to that effect. They bought their whole recruiting class, is what he said. And then Jimbo Fisher responded the next day with a press conference that he called because of this, not because he had a press conference scheduled, but he pretty much went nuclear and not only denied everything that Nick Saban said, but started questioning Nick Saban's character and his upbringing, and saying that if Nick Saban is not running a clean program at Alabama, and people need to check into that. And a couple of weeks later, with the SEC meetings down in Destin, and Saban and Fisher both did their best to kind of quash it. Fisher pretty much refused to talk about it. Saban did actually publicly apologize to Jimbo Fisher, who is his former offensive coordinator. I'm sure a lot of people know that. And everybody assumed they were friends. And it's definitely going to come up. People are going to ask about it now. Are they going to try to move on from it? Probably. But Nick Saban's the kind of guy that he has a message going into every press conference. So he has a prepared answer, and it may be something that we don't quite expect. But the real headline, I guess, is that they play in October in Tuscaloosa, and that's going to be must-see TV for sure.
Well, and also too, on top of that, again, just that awkward press conference that Jimbo called that next day, the comments that were unexpected from Nick Saban. On top of all of that, we know that Nick Saban has been pretty vocal about his feelings on NIL and some of his
Right.
reservations there about NIL. So that has been something he's been outspoken on really from day one of NIL. So it'll be interesting to see what the comments are this week if they come out.
No question. And, Nick Saban apologized to Jimbo Fisher for mentioning him personally, but I don't think he apologized for his message, which is They got to get a handle on this thing. It's leading college football in a direction that maybe we don't necessarily want, which is a lot of, Nick Saban's. He's not, whining and complaining that we can't compete. It's, if we get serious about this, nobody else is going to be able to compete with us. And do you really want that? And, we'll find out.
Now, this was not number 2 on your list, but I think it's number 2 on mine. So, it is my show, Craig, so we're moving that up. And that is Brian Harson. So let's talk a little bit about Brian Harson and about what is expected from him and from Auburn this week. Now, again, we know Brian Harson's first season was not a great one, but his off season could have actually been worse than the actual season, which is something that is, that's saying a lot, right? So let's talk a little bit about Brian Harson and what's expected for him this week at SEC Media Days and really throughout the season at Auburn.
Yeah, like you said, the season was not great. Obviously, they finished with a losing record. They very nearly beat Alabama, and that probably would have changed quite a bit if they had won that game. But there was, he made mid-season coaching changes, which is very unusual for a first-year coach. Bo Nix, who's pretty much Mr. Auburn for his entire life, transferred to Oregon and probably is going to face Georgia in the first game of the year, by the way, but as the starting quarterback for the Ducks. But and then the offseason, they signed a really low-rated recruiting class, and the boosters kind of got fed up. It seemed like they tried to figure out a way to force Brian Harson out, and when they figured out they couldn't fire him without paying him his full buyout, they kept him. And we've seen this sort of thing in the past with Tommy Tuberville about, what was it, 2003. The difference in that was Tommy Tuberville had just beaten Alabama when this happened to him, and he had a really loaded team coming back. I don't know that Brian Harson is in that situation. Now, their schedule is a little easier to start out the year. They do play Penn State early, but other than that, they should be heavily favored in their first 5 games. But the back end of the schedule is just brutal. They play Georgia, of course, they play Alabama, and the other SEC West contenders they'll probably be an underdog in 6 of their final 7 games. So I have a hard time seeing them putting a really great team on the field. Now, they could win 7 or 8 games, and maybe that's enough to save his job. But man, it's going to be pressure cooker all year for him.
Well, and also too, looking back at then Coach Tuberville, right now Senator Tuberville, but we're saying Coach because we're referring to that time before his entry into politics. But if you look at that early 2000s Coach Tuberville moment, he held the cards a lot more than Brian Harson did last year. Again, you mentioned he had beaten Alabama, and it seems like, and I don't think anybody will, or I'm sure somebody will, but I don't think most people would argue with this. He was more liked at the time as the coach of that team than Brian Harson was during, I think, as you put it, at a coup attempt in the spring by those boosters and by people really in high ranks there at Auburn, high donors and people of that nature.
Yeah, no question about that. And a big part of the reason Tuberville was more liked is because he was 3-1 against Alabama, and obviously had been there for 4 years and people knew him and, liked him and respected him and all that. And Alabama was not nearly, obviously was in a lot of turmoil itself at that time. And, he wasn't competing with the greatest coach of all time across the state back then. So there was a lot more in Tuberville's favor, as you said. But, and Harson was an interesting choice, kind of very much an outside the box choice. Auburn had not hired a coach from outside the Southeast since the late 1940s, I think, before Shug Jordan was even there. So, it was it was an odd choice, and, a lot in his favor is going to have to happen for it to work.
Craig, I want to ask you this, and again, I know I'm harping a little bit on Brian Harson, but I'm just interested in this. As a sports reporter, what do you think is the main question going into SEC Media Days, going into really any press conference right now with Brian Harson? What would you ask? What do you think most sports analysts, reporters, what is the main thing they want to ask Brian Harson right now? There's a lot of questions. What's the main one?
Well, he won't answer it, but he's definitely going to be asked what really happened. Was he ever in fear of losing his job, and did it ever occur to him to quit or anything like that? Now, again, he will either flatly deny it or just will filibuster, and he's pretty good at that. The events I've been at with him, he'll take 7 or 8 minutes to answer a question, and then before you know it, you're out of time. But he's got major questions at quarterback. Zach Calzada, the transfer from Texas A&M, did not take a snap in the spring due to injury, and what is his plan, and how is he going to execute it, basically, because it seems like talent-wise, he's at a disadvantage to a lot of his competition.
All right, let's go to one of your next top things to know, top things that we are asking, and that is looks like my mic went out there
Yeah, I lost your
for
audio
a
for a second.
second.
Okay,
Go ahead.
I missed the question.
All right, dealing with a little technical difficulties. I think I got it. Did you hear my question there, Craig, or do you need me to repeat that?
Please repeat it.
So, question. This is an AirPod problem here. I think we have all been there. They like to shut off sometimes unexpectedly. Georgia, can they do it again? Can Stetson Bennett do it again and take home the trophy again this year?
Yeah, I think they'll be in contention for it. And as much talent as Georgia lost this year, 16 players in the NFL draft, they're kind of like Alabama at this stage, where they're just reloading. They've been stacking so many great recruiting classes on top of each other that they'll be in position to win. And they could take a major step back this year and still go 12-0 during the regular season, because their schedule's not that tough. They don't play Alabama, they don't play Texas A&M, they don't play LSU. Um, so they're in a good spot. The rest of the SEC East is kind of rebuilding, but the proof will be in the postseason. And I don't know that they're necessarily the favorite again. Alabama's probably the favorite to win it all. I would guess Ohio State will be another team that's really a strong contender, but they'll be right there. So I don't have any reason to. This question won't be answered until January.
The proof is in the postseason. I want that on a T-shirt. I think we could sell those, Craig. Now,
Yeah.
next question. I'm kind of lumping these two questions together, and that is the realignment of the SEC, scheduling there, and also the new coaches coming into the SEC.
Right. Yeah, the realignment, obviously, with Oklahoma and Texas set to join, we think, in 2025, although it could be sooner, and then with USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten, it's just kind of taken things to another level. Obviously, the news for Oklahoma and Texas broke during SEC Media Days last year. UCLA USC news, the Big Ten, broke a couple of weeks ago, and it just seems like all the big programs that are not already affiliated with the Big Ten and the SEC are going to be for the taking. You do have some complicated things, especially with the ACC, in terms of their television rights. Could they freely go to one of those two conferences without paying a huge penalty? Probably not. What's going to happen with the rest of the Big 12? What's going to happen with the rest of the Pac 12? I think it seems like right now the SEC is probably satisfied with 16, but if things start jangling loose a little bit, then maybe it changes. And in terms of the scheduling, the SEC has been in an 8-team, 2-division format since 1992. People are thinking maybe that's a little outdated. The ACC went to changing to divisionless and then a 3-5-5 rotation, which means you have 3 permanent rivals that you play every year, and you rotate the rest of the teams in I guess it's 5 2-year segments. Yeah. And in the SEC, you have situations like Alabama and Georgia don't play in the regular season. Have not, played like once every 8 years in the regular season. You have some long-standing rivalries. Auburn, Tennessee don't play very often. People want to see those games more often. It makes people want to go to the games. So, are they going to be able to handle that, to get that done? And I'm not sure that's going to be answered at SEC Media Days, but it's definitely going to be a topic of discussion. Now, the new coaches are interesting because 10 of the 14 SEC coaches have 2 years or fewer experience in the league. The 2 new ones this year are big names at big-time programs. Brian Kelly left Notre Dame for LSU, which stunned a lot of people. And then, of course, Billy Napier, former Alabama assistant, left Louisiana to come to Florida. Really both strong hires, I felt like. And Brian Kelly especially had some really good teams at Notre Dame, and he's going to have so much more talent at LSU. I just think it's a matter of time before he's a national title contender there. Every coach they've had there wins a national championship, it seems like. And then Billy Napier, all the other Saban guys in the SEC have had a pretty good level of success, and I think there's no doubt that Napier's on that list as well. Now, it may take a little longer for him because Dan Mullen didn't recruit very well the last couple of years, so it's going to take a while to get his system in place. But I really think he's going to be a big winner as well.
Now, people wanting to watch their favorite teams, you mentioned some of the ex-Saban people here. I know that Lane Kiffin with Ole Miss, I believe, is today. Saban on Tuesday, Harson on Thursday. Give me kind of the big names for each day if people are looking to watch their favorite coach or team.
Yeah, of course, there's 14 teams, so they do 3 Monday, 4 Tuesday, 4 Wednesday, and 3 Thursday. Commissioner Greg Sankey speaks to open the event, which I guess is going on right now. And then you've got LSU, Ole Miss, and Missouri today. Tuesday, Alabama, Mississippi State, South Carolina, and Vanderbilt. Wednesday, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, and Kentucky. And then on Thursday, Auburn, Tennessee, and Texas A&M. And they usually have an officiating session with the director of officiating and go over the new rules and that sort of thing to kind of fill that out that day.
Looks like there's going to be a busy week here for us. I know at AL.com, for you, Creg, and for your colleagues in the rest of our sports department, and also just for sports fans in general. So, Creg, thank you for recapping this for us, telling us kind of what to look out for. And again, I know you're going to be busy this week. We will have all of that information on AL.com. We'll leave a link here to our sports coverage, so you can click there and all those news stories will appear. Creg, again, thank you so much. We're going to let you get back to watching that coverage. Everybody watching, thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.